I'm going to go right to the agenda and then the purpose of the meeting, then I'll turn it over to Mayor Warner. So this is the agenda for tonight's meeting. We're going to do an introduction of the staff that's up here in the front along, as well as some of the folks that are on the supporting cast that are on the sides. I'll ask Mayor Warner to give a brief welcome. The intent is to do a staff presentation. We've got about 25 supporting slides to give you an overview and to talk some of the detail associated with that. And then after that, we would ask that we do questions and answers, general questions and answers. That doesn't mean that in the middle of the briefing you can't ask a question. Feel free to do that. But the general questions and answer session will be after the presentation. Then after we get all that done, we're going to have our engineers on the two tables to the left, or to my left, your right. We'll have CPS and the Public Works over to the right. And the idea is they'll have specific plans. And if you want to see the specific plans in your in front of your house, with your mailbox, with your driveway, you can specifically ask them what's going on there. Next slide. We're going to, the purpose of the meeting, okay? So the purpose of this meeting is really to talk about the reconstruction of the following streets: Bent Oak, Chimney Rock, Cliffside, Ingate, Pond Drive, Saddletree, Shavano, Wagon Trail, and Windmill. There will also be reconstruction of the 5 cul-de-sacs that are over on the west side, and that's Elm Spring, Honeybee, Hunter's Branch South, and Turkey Creek. As a note, part of this phase 1 includes Zavala and also includes Post Oak Way, but that is planned for phase 1 B, and we're going to be addressing that separately as we get to that, as we move there. Next slide. I'm going to start off with an introduction. I'm Bill Hill, the city manager. I've been here 9 years, and most of you know, I've met most of you here, but if you ever have any questions, feel free to call or email me. I'm usually pretty available. I'll start off to my left, and we'll go to the right, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Chris, as well as your staff.
I'm Chris Otto with KFW Engineers. I am the city engineer. I've been working with Shavano Park since 2016. I got Bobby Torres is one of my senior project managers. Andy Caruth is one of our project engineers, and then Riley is one of our project managers as well. They've all been working on this project as well as the Zavala project.
Okay, Brandon.
My name is Brandon Peterson. I'm the Public Works Director for Shavano Park. I've been here for 7 years. I have Jessica Chinsky, my office manager, in the back here with me, and Jesse Cerna, the superintendent. So if y'all have any questions regarding water, please stop by the table and talk to us.
I'm Dee Loving with CPS Gas Engineering. I've been with CPS about a year. I have my associate Julia here. She's going to help answer any questions you may have after this presentation.
Well, Julie is part of the team that's the local government relations manager. So the great thing about CPS is we've got a direct line to them, and they are great in facilitating coordination issues. And Dee's the primary planner. I was complimenting him earlier on how responsive he is and how CPS is doing. We're glad to have the entire team assembled here. Right now, I'd like to introduce Mayor Warner, who's going to give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to have everybody out. Great community opportunity for us. Something that's been a long time coming to have a long-term plan for roads in Shavano Park. I hope that you will talk to your neighbors about this. This is all about community. It's about making this an integrated community from the east side to the west side and all roads in between. This is the beginning of the process. This process is going to unfold over the next 20, 25 years. We're not going to be talking about the second phase of this project on Zavala. We are very, very fortunate. On December the 22nd of last year, we have a $4 million appropriations that was included for Zavala. That project wouldn't have been done for a really long time. If you are inclined to talk to your congressman, please thank our Congressman Tony Gonzalez for including that in the appropriation. After tonight, if you have questions for the council members, please talk to the council members about your concerns with this project. Bill and Brandon have an open door. They want to hear from you too. Probably don't call Brandon unless you really have to. Brandon is the one-legged man in his whole department is trying to stomp out the grass fire. So let's try to start with the city, with your elected council members and with Bill Hill and go from there. As always, if you ever have any questions, please give me a call. I always enjoy talking to you folks. I know that I've been by most of your houses in this neighborhood, and I'm happy to come by and talk to you again. Thank you very much. Look forward to a great presentation this evening. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm remiss because we do have 2 council members here. All of the council members were planning on attending, but because of the quorum requirements, we could only have 2. So if I could introduce Alderman Conrad Kuykendall is in the back here, and then Alderman Pete Miller is also here as well. Madam Chairman, Carla Laws is here from the Planning and Zoning Commission, so glad to have you here. And what you probably don't know is that City Council formed a street advisory committee. And the street advisory committee is meant to be 3 subject matter experts of my choosing that would then advise me, and we would keep them informed throughout the whole process. And I see 2 of them here, and I'll introduce them. Al Whaley is here. Al Whaley is also the chairman of the Water Advisory Committee. But he's got a great reputation for process management. And he's a longtime resident here in Shavano Park, and a big part of this project is going to be sequencing the events as we move forward. The other guy that we brought in here initially is a civil engineer, retired, named Song Teng. He lives in Willowwood, but he is a subject matter expert and worked for Pape Dawson, and he's been of a great support to us in doing that. Here recently, I brought in Bill Simmons, who lives on Wagon Trail. He's also a member of the P&Z, but because the initial plan is to start on Wagon Trail, I wanted to have a resident that was on an advisory committee who was going through it so that they could have a direct line to me, as well as you all will probably have as we move forward. So go to the next slide. Okay, so what we're talking about, I know this is not a great slide, it's not color-coded, but we're talking about all the streets on the east side of Northwest Military Highway, commonly referred to as the old Shavano Park. It's Wagon Trail, Chimney Rock, Shavano Drive, Saddletree, Fawn Drive, Windmill, Bent Oak, Cliffside, as we move through that. Additionally, there's 5 cul-de-sacs that we've selected, and those cul-de-sacs are Honeybee, Turkey Creek, Hunter's Branch, Hunter's Brow South, and then Elm Springs. The reason why we chose those are they're in the worst shape, and they're primarily in a bad shape because of water leaks underneath the cul-de-sacs the way they were designed, and we can address that further if we need to. So does everybody got a good understanding of what we're talking about? It's approximately 6 miles. It's 6 miles. So next slide. There is a twist that if you look at the bid documents and the proposal, I don't want you to get too concerned about it this time, but we're going to break up the bid into a primary bid and then 3 alternates. It's really going to be one project, but we want the contractor to bid on Wagon Trail separately, in-gate separately, the 5 cul-de-sacs separately, and then the remainder of the streets in together one bid. And the primary reason to do that is if for some reason inflation and the cost are driven to exceed the amounts of money that we have, then we're going to be able to then take the primary project, alternate bid 1 and 2, and maybe drop 3, or pick 3 and drop 1 and 2, or something of that nature. Okay, so it is flexibility so that we don't overbid what our resources are. The reason why we chose Wagon Trail as an alternate bid is because we recognize that Wagon Trail has a very, very old water main in it, and that that's probably the first water main that would need to be replaced at some point in time. And that if we were going to replace the water main, we would probably want to do that in conjunction of the road. So if for some reason the road, the bids came in on this Phase 1 Alpha, and we had to drop off Wagon Trail, the current plan is to include that into the Phase 1 Bravo bidding process, which would be included with Zavala. Okay, so right now, just in terms, and I'm going to get to the next I'll get to that in the next slide. Okay, let's go to the timeline. Today's the January 18th. Currently, what we have now is we've received a set of plans from KFW, who is our engineer, and we are at 100%. There's always going to be some tweaking of the plans, but Bobby, if I could just have you hold up the 100% set of plans for everyone to see. We've got 3 sets of them here, so after the meeting, if you want to look at some of the plans, you're welcome to do that. So we've been working on this plan probably since April. And we've now gone through a series of 30% plans, 60% plans, 90% plans. We're at 100% plans, which means we're just short of our bid proposal. We wanted to have this town hall meeting to get any feedback from you, and then give us a week or so before we go to City Council. And we're going to take the bid proposal document, which I have here. It's 38 pages long, which is the detailed instructions to the bidder on how to bid for the project. I've got 6 copies here. If someone wants to see one of those copies, you're welcome to come get one at any time. You can come get it right now, or you can get it after the meeting. But today, what we intend to do is give you the outline of the plan. You know, like everything else, the plan survives the first shovel, or in the military, the first bullet that's fired. But if you have a good plan, then it's easy to adapt from the plan. But we're gonna give you an overview of the plan. We're gonna get any feedback we have. We think we've accounted for all the big issues associated with that. If we haven't, and if you pointed something out, we'll make sure we update the bid document before it goes out. And then on Monday, we're gonna be presenting a little bit of this feedback to the City Council to get their final approval. February 3rd, we're going to release the bid publicly, and then we'll be pushing it out to contractors that we know. We've got about 5 weeks before the bid opening. We'll do a bid opening, which will be public, and we'll be evaluating the bids, and then the idea is in the March 27th City Council meeting, all that will be presented to City Council. The intent is to go with best qualified, the lowest qualified bidder. So we won't necessarily go with the lowest bid, but we're going to make sure we have a qualified bidder that has done 3 projects in the last 5 years in established residential neighborhoods. That's the current plan. If City Council approves the bidder on the March 27th, then there'll be a process which should go fairly quickly of finalizing the contract with the actual contract, with the winning contractor, developing the schedule, and then we'll negotiate when the actual, I think it's permission to begin, right? What's the actual term, Chris? Notice to proceed. Yeah, same kind of thing. There'll be a notice to proceed, and then there is a mobilization time in which they're going to have to make sure that they've got, and we'll negotiate that with them. Could be 30 days, it could be 60, it could be 90 days before they actually begin. We'll finalize the first street that's going on, and somewhere between that time and the first time that there's a shovel put into the ground, we'll have another town hall meeting with the residents to talk about what it really means when it's going to happen in front of your yard and how we're going to do traffic control and all the details. And it's one of those things that if we start at Wagon Trail and you move south, which is the current plan, I'm gonna go over that in a minute. We may have a series of these depending upon how we need to do it to inform the residents. So we believe construction will begin in the summer of '23. I know that's kind of a loose term. We put in in the bidding document a requirement to be done in 18 months. The idea is that on a particular street, it may be 3 or 4 months from the time they start it and to the end it, so that we wouldn't be 18 months for the entire project. We have to negotiate with the actual bidder, the winning bid, because a lot of times they'll try to get it to a 90% completion and then come in and do the final asphalt lay at the end of the project. So that's to be determined. You can see on the slide there where we talk about a construction town hall with the contractor, and there may be more as we move forward. Any questions on the general timeline associated with that? Okay, next slide. This shows you the projected schedule with all bid items. And we're going to assume that all bid items will come in under the amount that's allocated. So we have a $10 million bond. About 9% of that is going to be factored into engineering cost. And so this bid will have to come in at about $9 million for the entire project. And the current estimates, based upon the best data that we have, and we're working through using TxDOT numbers, San Antonio numbers, local project numbers, et cetera, is that we're under that bid item. Good news is we're also collecting interest on the current amount of the funds that we have. And so that should help offset some of the cost inflations. And on the $10 million that we brought in the bid, we got that and received that money in July. We've already earned over $100,000 on it. Okay, so the current plan is to start, and this is subject to change, okay? So this is the current plan. It begins with Ingate and Wagon Trail on the north side, would move to Shavano and Chimney Rock, it would include the 100, 200 block of Fawn Drive, Windmill, Bento, Cliffside, Saddletree. And there may be some Cliffside on the north side that is pushed in before the south side, but that's all to be determined. Part of this has to do with the fact that CPS intends to upgrade and renew all the service lines for any gas service that is existing. And I've got a map that shows you where that is, but basically if the gas line's on your side of the street, then it only has to go through your service line and into your house. If it's on the other side of the street, it's got to go through the street and then into your service line all the way up to your house. And we've got a slide that CPS is going to talk that in a little bit later on. But the general intent is that prior to the construction of the street, if you start on Wagon Trail, the CPS gas lines have to be done in advance. And so in general concept, CPS will come in first, they'll move the utilities, then based upon what the contractor does, because it'll be a separate contractor doing the asphalt than doing the CPS. And then it'll be echeloned as we move forward there. And then Brandon's going to talk about the water system a little bit later on. After we do that, and it's, to be subject to change, we've got the 5 cul-de-sacs. So that's what we'd be looking at. It's possible that if the 5 cul-de-sacs are easier to do and we get into a lull and the contractor needs to jump forward, then we'll authorize them to do that, and that'll all be coordinated. But that is the general plan. That's based upon trying to limit the heavy equipment trafficability on the area that may have already been repaved. So once we work on it, we don't want to have a whole bunch of dump trucks and construction heavy material going over the newly paved stuff. We're going to try to do it from north to south and from basically east to west in that general scheme there. Okay, that is all that I am going to do as an overview, and I'm going to turn it over to the engineers, the Public Works, and CPS for the specifics of how they're going to do this. So, Chris, off to you.
So we started this process back in probably October of last year. And when we met with City council, we presented several different options, and your city council gave us the direction that if we're gonna do this, let's do it right and make sure that the street's gonna hold up. And so we had some different options, mill and overlay, crack sealing, very inexpensive but not long-term fixes. The city council directed us that they wanted a long-term fix, and these streets are gonna last for 30-plus years, and that's what we're going with. So we are doing full street reconstruction. The contractor will basically mill out 7.5 inches of the existing streets. Then they'll mix up about 6 inches and put lime stabilization in it to give us a good solid foundation. And then they'll put back 7.5 inches of hot mix asphalt, commonly referred to as black base, and of course the final lift. We are proposing to put an 8-inch, what we call a ribbon curb, along the edge of pavement. You may have noticed throughout Old Shavano that the edges of the roadway are broken off. Edge failure is common when there's not something there to protect it. And so by putting that concrete curb in there, we're protecting that edge. It gives the contractor something that they can compact up against as they're compacting that asphalt, and it greatly increases the lifespan of the roadways. Yeah, can you go back one? Sorry, I'm looking at two different slides. So it will be an 8-inch curb. It is going to be a full depth penetration through the base so that water infiltrating the pavement won't be a concern. And you should have a roadway that's going to last, 30 to 50 years with minimal maintenance. Right. And Brandon.
Okay, so as many of y'all know, we have the Trinity Well that's on the north end of town, right at the corner of Wagon Trail and Northwest Military. To get the water to our plant, it actually goes down the center of Wagon Trail, turns east on Shavano Drive, and ends at 108 at the elevated tower in the ground storage tank. As you can tell in the middle of this picture, the trench is actually failing a little bit. When we've actually been out there replacing the long services, we've noticed that the trench is kind of collapsing a little bit. We're going to have the contractor go through and actually recompact that trench so that way we don't have any failure in the future with the brand new road going in.
So the existing pavement is approximately 22 feet prior to the edges breaking off. The plan is to go back with 22 feet of impervious cover. We are in the recharge zone, so we do have TCEQ requirements that we have to consider. In order to accommodate the 8-inch curb to protect the pavement edge, we are going with 10.3 or 10 foot 4 inches of travel lanes in each direction, which gives us a total width of 22 feet when you consider the curbs. We are primarily replacing the road in place. There are a couple of locations where maybe the intersections have a little bit of weird geometry, or the road kind of moves away from the center of the right-of-way. There's actually a couple of locations where the road enters private property by, a foot or two. And so in those locations, we are going to do some pavement adjustments in order to correct those concerns. We will be preserving all trees. There's no tree removal recommended at this time. Sidewalk and bike lanes are not going to be added. And if you have any concerns about your specific location, we'll have the maps pulled up so we can talk about those. Driveways are going to be impacted anytime you cut out the road. You're going to affect driveways a little bit. We are putting the street back at basically the same elevation that it currently was, so we're not doing any kind of big changes because we wanted to minimize impacts to the community and driveways and mailboxes. There are 9 properties where we are going to have to do some driveway, we call them driveway penetrations. We will have to get into private property a little bit in order to construct the driveway at appropriate slopes so that you're not bottoming out the cars as you're pulling in. And we will construct the driveways with the same material that's there today. So if you have a concrete driveway, we're going to replace, with concrete. If it's asphalt, we'll use asphalt. And if you do plan on doing work to your driveway, please let us know so that we can plan ahead. I have had projects in the past where we did our entire plans, we bid the project, then we get out there and, someone had just put in a second driveway that nobody knew about. So if we can catch that in advance, it's very helpful. You are going to be impacted during construction. There's no doubt. I mean, when you've got heavy equipment out in front of your house and we're tearing up the road, there is going to be impacts. You're going to feel it, but you will have access to your home at all times. There may be a day where they're working directly in front of your driveway and, you might not have access for a short period of time. The contractors will be required to give you notice in advance of that so that you can plan ahead. And they will also provide access for trash pickup and mail delivery. I mean, all services have to be accounted for during construction. The contractor cannot block any of those from occurring. And then throughout construction, we will be meeting with the contractor on a regular basis and checking the project schedule and making sure that they are providing appropriate notifications when you will be directly impacted. There are 279 mailboxes within the project area. Of those, we estimate 135 of those are going to be in direct conflict with the construction activities. And the reason for that is, we're putting back the road basically where it is, but in order to construct that curb, they have to have some working space behind the curb. And so we assumed anything that was within 2 or 3 feet of that back of curb would be impacted. The plan right now is if a mailbox is in conflict, a temporary mailbox will be put in its place. It's a 5-gallon bucket filled with concrete and a mailbox post. And so the contractor, as they're working in that area, they can just roll that mailbox out of the way, do their work, and then roll it right back into place so that mail can be delivered. One of the requirements from the post office was the mailman cannot get out of the truck to deliver mail. And so we do have to provide those mailboxes close enough to the street so that they can deliver efficiently. The mailboxes that are in conflict, there are some nice mailboxes out there. Some of them are going to have to be removed. Those will be replaced with like, kind, and quality material. We do have a special specification in our plans. It's actually called Special Mailbox, where we actually take pictures of the mailboxes before construction. We stick it in the specification, and the contractor has to build it back like it was before they got there. No, never mind. That's what I was about to say. So we were in conversations with the post office about possibly having to do community mailboxes. That's what they initially wanted us to do. We pushed back pretty hard on that, and we did get them to agree to temporary mailboxes at your existing location. Like I said, as long as they can drive up to it and deliver the mail, then they're good. So we should not have a need for community mailboxes.
Okay, so as most of y'all have probably seen, we've actually started working on the water services across the north end of town, working our way south from Wagon Trail south. As of right now, we've completed all of the water line crossings, the service lines from Wagon Trail, Shavano Drive, Chimney Rock, Saddletree, and the 300 block of Fawn. So basically, Wagon Trail all the way to Saddletree has been completed. We are going to continue working our way south, but we've got to get in front of the Northwest Military Contractor first and get some water mains relocated that are impacting the entrances off of Northwest Military. Currently, crews are working off of Bent Oak and Northwest Military and Windmill and Northwest Military. That is so that the paving crews can start working on those mid-February to first part of March. We're going to try and work our way north to stay in front of them. So once we're done with those, we'll be working our way to Shavano Drive and then back to Wagon Trail, and then we'll start the mains going south. Once we've completed those, we'll go back to the long services that are basically on the 1 and 200 block of Fawn, and then work our way down to Cliffside. The timing of all this, we are going to be impacting your water service. We try to do our best to keep it down to about an hour that your water is off from the minute we actually cut the trench to putting your line in and reactivating it. Just bear with us. Sometimes it does take a little bit more time depending on what we're connecting to, or if we have an issue at the main itself when we're retapping your new service line in. But all water lines will hopefully be moved prior to construction, but some of it may be going on during construction as well.
Yeah, I'd like to amplify on that. So we have a water main that goes down either the left or the right of the street. And then if your house is just like the gas line, if your house is on the same side as the water line, it's real easy just to put a service line to your house. If it is on the other side, then we've got to go through the street. So that's what you see if you drive down Wagon Trail. Every 100 yards, you're hitting a bump because they've already trenched 2 feet down, and what we've had to do is we've had to lower those lines. The problem is that when they built the water system in the really the 50s and the 60s in most of these areas, they didn't dig those lines deep enough, and they didn't actually build the roads to standard, and that's why we have this problem. What Brandon's crew is doing now is where there's an existing line that crosses the street, he's actually rock sawing. I think it's 24 inches deep. Is that correct?
24 to 30.
So we're putting that new water line 24 inches. And then before he just puts the water line down in the dirt, we're actually putting a piece of PVC that extends from one side of the road to the next side of the road and beyond, so that he can slip a water line through it. And then in the future, if we have to replace that line or something has to go on, that he can then replace it without digging up the street. That's the idea. Initially, that's all we thought we had to do. And then we just started thinking about, well, what else is going on out there? Well, we have water mains, and some of them are 4 inches, some are 6 inches, some are 8 inches, some are 12 inches. They go throughout the city. One of the challenges, we've been trying to map it all out. Brandon has done a great job of doing that in the 6 or 7 years that he's been here, and we're working with KFW. We're putting in all that in GIS, so it's all engineered and we know what it is. But we've got some pipes that are concrete asbestos, or asbestos concrete. We've got some that are iron and some that are PVC. And the oldest ones are the asbestos concrete. So what we've done is there's identified 17 places where across the street there's a water main that crosses the street. Now, most of the time we'd like to put the water main next to the street, and ideally we would put it near the edge of the right-of-way. Some of those are at the edge of the right-of-way, and some of them are like 1 foot from the edge of pavement. And so that causes us challenges. But there are 17 main water lines that cross the street. What Brandon and his crews have done a great job is they've gone to the left and the right side of the street. They've taken what's called a Vactron, which is basically a high-speed water pick, and they've removed the soil, exposed the pipes. We've had the engineers come and engineer it till we know the depth of it. We know the exact depth. We know the exact type. And then he has prioritized all 17 of those water mains and said, okay, these are in direct conflict. They have to be moved because if you dig down, 12, 13 inches, you're going to break the existing ones. He's also said these are asbestos concrete. They're the oldest. They're in the worst shape. We need to replace those. And then we've looked at some other factors. There's 9 of them that we're completely committed to doing no matter what. And then that leaves 8 that we want to do, And if we get time to do, or if the situation changes, we're going to do it. And the idea is it's much better to do the same thing. We're talking about not a 3-inch trench that's down 24 inches. We're talking about a 12-inch, an 8-inch trench, a bigger trench that is, and how deep is it?
We're going 27 inches wide. Some of them are up to 50 to 60 inches deep.
Yeah, so we're going really deep. And he's putting another sleeve in there so that later on, if you had to replace the piping underneath that, you won't have to dig up the street. So that's the current plan. And it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and we've got to do it. So that's what he's saying. We started out just, let's fix the service lines that are going across the road, because we got to do that. Well, he's done 50%, over 50% of them already. And now we're saying, well, we better go back and do these water crossings before we finish Windmill, Bent Oak, and Cliffside, so that we can stay ahead of the contractors as we move forward. So that's kind of that. Hope that helped that explain that. Next slide. Okay, D.
So CPS Energy will be replacing all the aging iron gas service lines in the project area. We'll be using plastic to do that. As you know, of course, steel corrodes and breaks down over time, so CPS Energy is also extending the gas mains at 126 through 200 Cliffside and 100 to 104 Shavano Road. The project will be joint bid with the street project. CPS plans to use slip lining technique to avoid trenching onto properties, or also it's known as doing an insertion. A new gas service line will be installed inside the existing gas service line. So basically, let's say you're on the west side, the main is on the west side of the street, but your service is on the east side of the street. We're gonna trench 1 foot inside your property line. We'll run a 1-inch plastic to that point, use a reducer, and we'll insert a 1/2-inch plastic line all the way to your meter. The meters are pretty far away from the streets in this neighborhood, so in order to avoid kinking the line, they'll likely insert it, let's say 50 feet, and then they'll cut your existing steel main, and then they'll insert another 50 feet, just to make sure, and they'll electrofuse the 2 or 3 joints together, just to make sure you have no kinks in your line.
We do have a map that shows where we think the existing CPS gas line service is. So that's what we were provided.
So as you can see, the green areas currently have gas service. The red areas, there's no gas main there, so those residents do not have gas service. If you can see the little sections of yellow, yes, so that's on Cliffside. We'll be installing new main there, and there's a tiny section there on Shavano Drive where we will be installing new main. If there is interest in gas service in the community, we need the applications. So if you can call 353-2222, that's the phone number to apply. We do need those applications, and it likely will not occur with this project, but we can put something together if there's enough demand to extend the mains and get service to the residents that don't have it in a separate project.
So Dee, just because I know this is going to come up, why are you replacing those service lines?
Because I believe they were put in the 60s. So as you know, the steel breaks down, and this is an opportunity for us to get in now while you're doing your reconstruction project and not tear up those new roads. So since you're gonna tear them up anyway, this is our chance to get in there and put in brand new lines to all the residents.
And what about the crossings of the gas main over the roads? Have you thought about doing those?
The crossing of the gas main or the gas services?
The gas mains. I don't know where they are. I think what we were told is that CPS came and evaluated them, and the gas mains are in good enough shape to where you didn't feel like you needed to do it.
Yeah, that's part of it. We did do, we have software that evaluates the condition of the main, and the software told us that it's in decent shape, it's in good shape. So also, the other aspect was our budget. We couldn't get to all the mains on this particular project, so that's why we're gonna just tap into the existing mains and make sure the service lines don't have any issues. From now till, plastic pretty much lasts forever, so hopefully that's what happens.
And there's a diagram, if you go back one slide, that shows the plastic being inserted into the existing metal, and then it'd be pushed up through to the house, and then from the house it'd be connected in that way, right?
Yes, that's called doing an insertion. So if you have, let's say, a 1-inch service, we'll likely run a 1/2-inch insertion all the way up to your meter. Like I said, we don't want it to kink, so we'll use your steel service as a casing and run about 50 feet or so. We'll cut it, run another 50 feet. We'll electrofuse the two together, and if we need another section, we'll cut it again and insert another section to your meter.
And hypothetically, if, let's just say that there's a right angle, a 90-degree turn, are they gonna be able to make that turn, or are they gonna
No,
cut it right there?
They're gonna
and
have
then-
to cut it.
Okay.
They're gonna cut it, and they'll put a 90-degree elbow that's, made for that, and run it to the meter from there.
So I know we got some questions, and we're gonna get to that at the end there. Let's,
No, it will not. It's not, how is it possible? Right, well, the pressure. No, we're not gonna raise the pressure, but the pressure in your house will not decrease. We use software for that, and it'll tell me if the residents are gonna lose pressure. If they're gonna lose pressure, we can't do it. So no one's gonna lose their gas pressure.
I was just wondering if you have appliances like a water heater, like a tankless water heater or something that requires so many BTUs of gas, will it be able to supply it? When you bought this stuff based on a 1-inch,
Right. I don't have the exact answer right now, but I'll get you an answer for sure. And,
well, I do know if you break a gas line, that is high pressure, so generally speaking. And I know we got more questions here. Let's get through this. We're almost finished here. Next slide. Drainage.
So this is primarily a roadway project. There are no significant drainage improvements being proposed. However, we are doing some minor drainage improvements. There are some areas of the old Shavano where there were bar ditches that have filled in with sediment over time. We are reestablishing those bar ditches where we can. There are some areas like on Cliffside where there's a significant amount of water that crosses over the road. Fawn also has an area where water crosses over the road. We are going to put concrete pavement in those areas just so it holds up better to the flow, and it won't erode and deteriorate like asphalt would. The culverts that we constructed previously are going to be left in place. We're not modifying those. They were designed appropriately when we did them, and so we're in most cases we're going to rebuild the road right up to them. Some of those do have concrete pavement already. We're going to leave that concrete pavement alone. I mean, we just did it. Why would we want to take it out? And so we'll build the new road right up to that concrete and tie it in. If you do have any specific drainage concerns, I know we've already heard from some residents as we've been working through this, but if you have anything that we haven't heard before, please let us know. We'll be over there at that table, and we'll look at it and see what we can incorporate into the project.
Okay, so the way ahead. So as you ask questions, I'm going to write them down, and my team will write them down. We'll record that. And then what I hope to do is capture all that and then make sure that's available so that other people have similar questions, might be able to look at the website and then answer those questions. A couple things that are still pending. The exact order in which the streets will be reconstructed will work with the contractor. The exact timing of when you might expect it to occur in your street. The only thing I will really tell you is we'll have a pretty good idea initially, especially if you're starting on the first 2 streets. Hey, it's coming, and then we'll work the timeline from there. How long the street will be construction kind of depends on who we select as a contractor, the size and the capability of their operations, and whether or not whenever they do that. But we anticipate, we've given them an 18 months timeline. They're going to be looking to get it done before that because, they're going to want to be in and out. But it'll depend upon what their capabilities are. Because they're joint bidding with CPS, they're going to have a different contractor that actually does the work for CPS Gas. CPS Gas, as I understand it, has only 4 authorized subcontractors. They're already known, and so whoever the asphalt and the dirt guy is he's going to go to those 4 bidders and say, hey, what is your bid for these projects? And it's going to be one of the 4 known vetted CPS contractors that work on it, and they should be very familiar with doing that work. I mean, right now we're working hand in hand with, is it Bedico that's doing all the gas line work in Northwest Military Highway. We've had some challenges with them, but we've also got a good working relationship with them. So we will intend to do that. So we know we owe you when we expect the construction to occur in your house, how long it's going to be. Really, we say that trash and recycle and all other deliveries are not to be impacted, but there's going to be some inconvenience, and there's going to be some impact when they're working on specifically in front of your house. But we need to get more details of that. We know that. And then, part of the plan is going to be what is the traffic movement plan. If you're working on the intersection of Northwest Military Highway and Windmill, like we're doing right now, that road is blocked while we're working on it. You'll have to take a side road and come back around the other side. So it's a challenge. We know communications is going to be a challenge, and that's kind of what we've got going on. I think I've got one more slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Curtis to kind of talk about how you can best stay up to date and get the latest and greatest messages. Go ahead, Curtis.
Great segue, Bill. So communications, the fastest way to stay up to date on this project as we move forward is easily going to be TextMyGov. I'll leave this slide up. You can go up with your phone. You can scan those QR codes. They will input the word into the number for you. All you hit is send. You sign up. This is completely free. It doesn't require you to download application or anything. You text. You can sign up for COSP Road. There's also you'll get specific updates on the road projects we're going through. Detours, the contract will be moving in front of this block of this street next week. Here's what you can anticipate. Those sort of detailed things will be sent out for that, but you can also sign up for, at minimum, I would say the emergency one. That's when we can send out when we have storms coming, road closures, flooding issues in the city, events for things we got going on, like events like tonight. COSP Watch will be the neighborhood watch, so if you want to join that and get information on crimes happening in the neighborhood and the reports sent from the police department direct sent to your phone, and then the water if you're on the water system. So that will be up there, and the city's website, shavanopark.org/streetbond, will be the home place digitally for all information on this project as we move forward.
So we've got go back. We've got a QR code for emergency, Shavano Park events, Shavano Park Neighborhood Watch, Shavano Park Roads, Shavano Park Water, and there may be some other services. There's some 3x5 cards, I think, out in the front that have some of this information on there. And at some point in time, Curtis, I think we ought to create a separate blow-up of the Shavano Park Road one, just as a standalone as we move there. So what I would do now is I'll go to general question and answer session, and I'll try to capture these questions and the answers, and if we have a follow-on, we can do this. We've also got Mayor Warner here, if you have any questions for him as well. We'd be glad to have him contribute and join in. So.
I think people can hear me.
Well, we are recording this too, and so we're going to put this on the website, so it does help to have you speak in the mic.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, Brandon, you're gonna replace the water main down the easement
No,
Back-
sir.
back by my house? or-
Down the alley? No, sir.
Oh, okay, that's basically.
Only
what-
the crossings of the road, just across the road, that segment of maybe 25 feet.
Yeah, and so, so I think a fire hydrant is actually on my property, over my property line. Would this be the time that, in case I wanted to put a fence up sometime, would this be the time to get it moved back in the right of way, or not?
Yeah, we can get it moved back. I'll take note and see where it's actually located at. But yes, if it's on private property, I can get it moved back.
Because I'm not 100% sure, but I just wanted to, I've been thinking about that for a while,
How far is your fire hydrant from the asphalt?
I haven't measured it, because the asphalt's all broken down anyway. So I wouldn't give
So
you.
you know, the right-of-way is typically 10 to 15 feet from the edge of the right-of-way, the asphalt.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at my property line when they did the survey,
Mhm.
so. And there is a gas line that crosses from 200 Fawn over to my property. I'm the last one around that has it, so I don't know how deep the thing is, so.
The gas lines are pretty deep. We've had experience in both the old side and the estates where we've actually trenched and we've located the gas lines, and they're typically 3, 4, 5 feet deep.
I'm sorry, what address were we talking about?
118 Fawn.
118?
So can I just ask a general question with respect to street drainage? Is it a general intention and goal of the new design to ensure that the street drainage does not drain onto our property any longer as a result of all of this work? That the ditches that are now plugged up over many, many years and the crossings and all the rest of it will take care of all the stormwater, and that stormwater will not bleed onto our sites? Is that a goal or not?
Short answer is no. This isn't a drainage project, and so we're not doing major drainage improvements, but we are reestablishing bar ditches. So the ones that have been silted up over time, we are going to reestablish those as much as we can. Based on current design standards as of 2023, I promise you those bar ditches do not convey a design storm. So water will still continue to spill out of the bar ditches and onto private property.
What address are you at, sir?
210 Cliffside Drive. And we've spoken to the engineer at KFW. Is it KFW, I guess, is the firm? Is that right? In fact, we met and talked about it when he was out there. But it's an issue for us, and it's a problem. It devalues the property when you have that kind of a problem, and it's the city's problem in the way that it was accepted in the first instance when the development was done, because the lots should not flood in an event where normally the ditches that are intended to carry the water should take the water and culvert them out to wherever they need to go, but not dump on our sites. As simple as that. So, we can take it up separately, and I've already mentioned it to you.
Curtis, can you go to the CPS gas map? Hang on one second. because I want to address this a little bit. We might have should have had a drainage map here. We don't have one. But, and Chris, you can do this. There is a natural drainage channel that basically dumps out right here, and it comes through here. And it comes up through here, and water all the way through here comes through here, and that's the way. I wouldn't say it was designed. That's, when the property was platted in the 1949, and they just allocated lots there. They just basically took the natural drainage, and that there actually wasn't any drainage that was built there. Those lots were established even prior to the city being established. Chris, you want to talk about that? Because there's a couple different drainage areas, and it even in Wagon Trail, there's issues.
Yeah, so back in, I think it was 2017, we did do a drainage master plan for the city. And we did identify several projects in this area. And of course, several of those were built a couple of years ago, but due to funding limitations, we're not able to incorporate those into this project. We're already close on the budget. Like I said, we have $10 million in funding, and our current estimate is 9.7 or $9.8 million.
Yeah. And that's not their decision. That was a council decision. There is so much money that can go around, and we could raise everybody's taxes to the San Antonio level, and we could afford to do certain things. But many of us moved into this city decades ago, and we have exactly the same drainage problems that we had decades ago. I have drainage issues at my house. I bought that house knowing that I had those drainage issues. We haven't made those drainage problems substantially worse in the last 35 years that I've lived here. We haven't made them better. But if we were to go out there and to fix all the drainage problems in this city, it would probably have cost us 3 times the amount of money that we're having to pay under this proposal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is very informative, and I apologize I came in late. For this side of Northwest Military, between Zavala and Huebner, I heard you say that there were not going to be bike trails, but isn't the intention on Northwest Military to have bike trails to go down towards Huebner to be able to get on the Greenaway?
Northwest Military is going to actually have bike lanes on both sides from 1604 all the way to Huebner.
Great, that's all. And do we know an estimate of the completion date of, like, just south of here, I guess?
They're currently ahead of schedule right now. Originally, it was supposed to be March of 24 when they're completed. They're looking around Christmas time right now.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question about the bike lanes. And a little bit related, is there any talk about getting paved access from Cliffside down to the creek bed?
Not in this project. So the question again was at the corner of Cliffside, which is right here. The city owns that piece of property right there. And there is a trail that goes across here and then swings back in, and it connects to the Saddletree Creek Greenway. So there has been improvement of that. Actually, we've improved that to where it's not an improved trail, but it is.
Yeah, thank you. I do use that trail frequently, and I'm happy it's there, but it is quite difficult to roll a bike across it with the trailer attached.
Definitely, you would have to walk it for sure.
quite disruptive. I mean, I'm grateful that at least that is there. I know Inwood across the creek does have a paved access, and it's really nice, and just wondering if that might be a consideration in the future to get something similar for us.
So as part of the town plan, there is a part about increased mobility, pedestrian and bicycle.
Okay.
That area is identified, and it's identified as an area that can be in the future developed. City Council has looked at that before. There was a kind of an informal working group. There's been some coordination with Cliffside folks there, and that decision has been deferred. You know, it's possible that in the future there could be a improvement made. I think that having seen Inwood do theirs is a good model because there's a fence and it's secure and there's a gate and there's a code and the access is controlled. And you may not know it, but Huntington is doing the same thing. Huntington, which you know, they have all the houses there are $2-3 million houses. They're putting in access, a bicycle access and a pedestrian access, which will be a sidewalk from the furthest east street. There will be a gate, and it will lead into Salado Creek with controlled access. So once all that gets done, I think that'll give us some examples of best practices, and it can be considered in the future. But it's not part of this project.
Okay, thank you. And also, I'm on 412 Cliffside Drive and hoping to get natural.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
I said I'm on 412 Cliffside and hoping to get natural gas.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. And let's make sure someone's writing this down. You know, if you live right here or here, in order to get natural gas, you're going to have to work with CPS to get that main gas line extended. That's probably done at a relatively reasonable cost. If you live here, the gas line would have to be extended all the way to there just for you to get there. If you live here, and if you can get your neighbors all the way here to sign up for that, then you can split the cost. Now, that's common practice. Like my dad has a ranch in Goliad, Texas. They had no electricity there. His neighbor, about the time he bought his place, and they had an electrical line brought into that property, and that guy had to pay for it. And then when my dad brought his line in, my dad had to pay half of the other guy's property. But fortunately, the neighbor on the other side moved his electric line and got electricity there, and he had to reimburse my dad for half of it. So again, you know, if you're doing it yourself and you live here, that's a long way to go. But you know, unfortunately, and maybe Dee, you can talk about how this works. You know, if you live here, you can have it extended, and you'll have to work that with CPS. The city will help you to the extent that we can. We'll help you as much as we can. We have a great relationship with CPS. Dee, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so anyone that wants gas, they have to put in an application first, and once they put in an application, they'll get with you on the cost to extend the main as far as it needs to go to get gas to your residence. As you can see, there's a lot of areas here that don't have gas, so we were kind of discussing if we could do an alternate project, if there's enough demand for these mains. Again, we need everyone that does want service to apply, and once we see there's a demand for gas there, perhaps CPS can make something happen. But I'd like to assure everyone this insertion technique is very old. It's been done many times. It's nothing new. It's just designed to prevent you from having problems with an old steel gas main in the future.
A question, there's questions about the pressure variation that's going to happen. I'm assuming that main is a pressure regulator by itself.
Yes.
So whatever's coming in from the street, it's a flow restrictor, and once it hits your house, it just goes the way that the house is already.
Right. So the pressure is not going to be the issue. I guess flow is what someone would be concerned about, but For residential use, you're not gonna have any trouble. If it were commercial, like a bakery or something like that, you might have some problems, but you guys aren't gonna have any issues with these insertions.
Okay, I think most of y'all know me. I've lived in Shavano Park a little over 55 years. I've seen a lot of flooding, a lot of everything else, and really, I know our hands are tied with what we could do. Right now, our streets are in disrepair. We need to do the streets. We need to have these upgraded. I'm all for that. But what ends up happening over the years is we've always addressed, we got to do something about the drainage issue, because what's happening is the drainage is also affecting the streets, because they get under and crack and everything else. But that was, that's just kind of putting it in order. The question I have is, I want to say it was in 1999 or 1998. That's when they put in the asphalt. The last time we did asphalt on Shavano Drive, and when they did that, they actually raised it 12 to 14 inches in front of our house. And that's when we have bar ditches on either side. They went down the street and ended up in the mayor's house. And he always gets it. I don't know. He's got a really tough time whenever it rains, even nowadays. But my question is this: when they add this additional asphalt, are they going to raise it even higher than that? Or are they just, because I know originally they took and regurgitated the existing asphalt, laid it back down, and then asphalted over that. Are they going to pull the old asphalt out? Or are they just going to add it more to it? So instead of having 10, 12 inches, now looking at 24.
We're actually going to take out 7.5 inches of asphalt and then put in 7.5 inches of asphalt. So we're matching existing grade as it stands today.
Okay, so it's pretty much status quo, because
Yes.
anytime I get over an inch of rain, I have to run 3-inch pumps because of what occurred in '99. So at 70 years old, having to go out there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
What's the address?
Oh, it's 115 Shavano Drive.
I don't know if you all addressed yet, because I've been here for the entire meeting, about how many feet of our landscape is going to actually be removed to do this road project, and also are they going to be putting up any kind of like that plastic fencing to protect existing beds that are already in the yard when they do the project?
So our anticipation is that they're going to disturb the yards 2 to 3 feet behind the back of proposed curb. We do intend on limiting the contractor's access to private property. There is no access to private property except for those 9 properties where we have to do driveway penetrations, and that will be coordinated with the property owner. In fact, those property owners have already been notified. I'm looking for Curtis. So there should be minimal impacts. Wherever they do disturb the ground, they're going to have to restore it. And Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no landscaping beds or hard features that were impacted.
There are some landscaping beds and hard features that are within the right of way that could be impacted. So what we've done is we put notes in there to make sure the contractor videos everything, make sure we have a lot of proof of what's out there today, and then we do the best to put it back the way it was before. So there will be minimal impacts, but there will be some.
So I think the primary impact is when they put the ribbon curb in. So the ribbon curb is going to go in, that 8 inches of asphalt, of concrete, at about where the existing edge of pavement is right now. But they're going to have to dig down, and in order to do that, they've got a machine that's actually going to, once they, explain that process and the machine that they're going to use, and that's why you need the 2 to 3 feet on the edge. And then what if someone's already got a concrete driveway? Are you going to have to tear that up? Or if they've already got a concrete driveway that's a standard, are we just going to start on the other side so we don't impact them?
Yeah, so the reason I say that they're gonna go 2 to 3 feet behind the back of curb is because they do have to set form work for the concrete. I mean, it's just like pouring a slab. You have to have the forms. And they do that on the back side of the curb. On the front side of the curb, they will most likely use a curb extruder, which is a machine that just runs down the road and it pours the concrete and it shapes it as they walk it down the street. Existing driveways are most likely going to be impacted right where they intersect the road, and that's why we do include driveway reconstruction in our plans. The reconstruction is limited as much as possible. It's mostly going to be just the apron of the driveway. We're not going to be going into your yard except for those 9 that we've previously discussed. But we may be going to the right-of-way line. And it is important to note that the right-of-way line, may be 10 to 15 feet off of the back of curb, depending on where the street lies within the right-of-way. Just be aware of that.
Forgive me if I missed something, but most of the conversation has been on the east side of Northwest Military. Am I right in assuming that on the left side of the 5 cul-de-sacs, everything is going to be the same, like the same general guidelines, the same time frame, 18 months, same CPS doing whatever they have to do on our side? Is that correct? It's still all within the 18-month time frame on the west side, the 5 cul-de-sacs?
Yes, we included the base bid and all 3 additive alternates in that 18-month timeline. In those cul-de-sacs, we would do the same thing as far as the ribbon curbs, 7.5 inches of asphalt.
I'm talking about CPS.
Well, I'll defer to.
Timeframes, how you're going to do it. Everything is the same on the west side as the east side? Or have
Yes.
y'all looked at the west side gas?
I believe they're gonna do 2 streets at a time, and overall, to do all the gas insertions, it's gonna take 3 to 4 months for this entire area, for all services to be done.
I think we have to get back to you on the 5 cul-de-sacs. Okay. Bobby, do you know?
So whatever's there now is going to stay there.
We're not doing any of the gas on the, I guess that'd be the south side of,
It's west.
the west side.
This is north.
Oh, okay, I'm disoriented. But yeah, what's on the diagrams, what we're doing, in-gate lane should be green, it's blue, but there is gas main there, and we will be doing those gas services as well.
I have a question about the water mains down Wagon Trail and Shavano Drive. You said they run down the middle
Yes, sir.
of the streets? Are those going to be moved to one side or the other?
No, sir.
So, and you said they're 50 to 60 inches down?
No, that water line's actually around 3.5 to 4 feet. What we're putting for the new water main crossings, we're trying to put those down at the 50 to 60 inch deep
So,
level.
but you're going to trench Wagon Trail and Shavano Drive at some point, right down the middle? No.
No,
They're going to compact it on top of it to make sure that it doesn't fail on top of it. So they'll improve the existing, what do you call it, base or area above it.
Okay, got that.
basically we're having them recompact the trench, so that way it's compacted in there. Right now, when we did the long service cuts across there, there was actually open like voids, like there was holes, like from the material down below around the pipe settled in more, but the top didn't. So now we're just gonna have them compact it more, so it is settled in there.
Gotcha. And then at the Trinity Well House, where that Y is on Wagon Trail,
Yes, sir.
so it's my understanding that when military's done, the right side of that Y, as I look at it, is going to be eliminated.
That is correct. That will no longer be a.
No,
that
it won't
hap-
be eliminated. It's going to be, the access will be blocked here, and that will serve as kind of
long
an
drive.
access in a driveway to this property right here. 'Cause
Right,
you-
so
you-
the right-hand access, the right turn, if
You-
you're going north will be
They're going to
eliminated.
modify this one slightly so that the in and out will only be on the north side there.
Will military be done at that point when this is done on Wagon Trail for the new streets or not?
No.
It won't.
I'm guessing, though, that, I'm guessing if we worked it, that you know, they're gonna be working on this, they're already working on, forming, the driveways. And then when they get that sidewalk done on the west side, they're gonna start working on the east side as well. It's gonna go a lot faster because all the water lines have been replaced, all the gas lines have been replaced and removed, all the drainage has been done, or most of the drainage has been done. There's some drainage on the east side, but I don't think here there's any drainage. I'm not sure.
Not there. It's down here towards Windmill and Bentoke, where you see the pipe stacked on the side of the road. There's storm drain that still has to be put in on the east side on that portion.
I just asked because you said that Wagon Trail might be first. And Wagon Trail's become a bypass and a cut-through with all the military construction. And so the thought that it would be first concerns me because it's already a construction road in a lot of ways. People cut through Wagon Trails to bypass that huge chunk of military, whether it be for lights or traffic backup or whatever. And so I don't mind it being first, but it already is a de facto construction bypass on a lot of days. Yeah, it's, and I also asked that the speed limits be reduced there because everybody speeds on it, and that got shot down. But yeah, it's become a construction road and a thoroughfare to bypass anywhere from Old Shavano to get up to 1604, or to cut back into the neighborhood so you don't have to go down too far and make left turns. So,
You know, I'm guessing if they do construction first there, that people will find a different route and they won't bypass. But
Are there any concrete culverts planned for Wagon Trail, to cross Wagon Trail for the water? Probably your question. Okay, because there's two places on Wagon Trail where water crosses, and one of them's in front of my house, which is, if you look up there on the map where the A is on Wagon, that's that little line there, that's the start of Almas Creek. So I live at 109, which is the lot to the, go up, now left. That's my lot. So I get water in my front yard, which is no big deal because it subsides pretty quickly, but it runs across the street there, and it's caused that curb, that asphalt to deteriorate because it underflows it, and that's really become a problem. So I didn't know if you had any plans for that. It's at 109, between 107 and 109. Okay. Yeah.
From the asphalt to the surface, there is about a 6 to 12-inch drop-off.
Right. And it didn't used to be like that.
Right.
It's just over from all the rain that we haven't had. Yeah. It's just because it's just like on a river when it goes over the dam, it undercuts there, and then when a car comes too close there, it pops that asphalt right off. So I just didn't know if you had any plans for that or not, but you may want to look at that. I just wanted to ask you one more thing. Are you going to put the speed bumps back on where they are now? Because I kind of like the slow people. People are flying down my street.
As of right now, none of the speed bumps are going back. As of right now, none of the speed bumps are going back.
They will be recertified. You and your neighbors get to talk about it again. The speed bumps that you can anticipate are going to be like those that are on Elm Spring. So drive down Elm Spring, see what that's like. The ones that we have not necessarily put in uniform speed bumps across the city. As we redo the roads, we're going to have a uniform standard that will be applied when we put in speed bumps. You and every neighbor will have an opportunity to say, I've got a problem on my street. And the people that have the speed bump in front of their houses are going to have the opportunity to say, well, we think that it ought to be in front of your house. I think it is in front of your house, if I'm not mistaken. But everybody's going to have an opportunity and not wake up one morning and say, I didn't know they were going to put it in my front yard.
So there is a policy that we've got, and just to clarify, the city does not authorize speed bumps anymore. We authorize speed humps. And so, I mean, it's a subtle difference, but it makes a difference. And well, it's not, it's a matter of the height and the ability to disrupt and damage vehicles and other things. But there will be a way in which, and there is now, in which residents get together and there's standards. I can't remember if it's 80% or 90%. Everyone has to agree, and then you have to decide on where it's going to be, and then those people where it's going to be has to agree to it, and so forth.
I just wanted a quick clarification. On CPS, your services, you're going all the way from the main to the house.
Yes, from the main to the meter.
And then on the water, you're going from the main to the meter, which is in the right of way.
Correct.
Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, and at this point in time, we've got 3 sets of plans over here, and our 3 subject matter expert engineers there, and you're welcome to come say, hey, look, what's happening in front of my house? Also, CPS, D, if you want to go over there, if you want to talk specific of CPS or Public Works, you can talk there. And here's a draft request for proposal.